Hello guys, how's it going? So I just want to do a little demo of this software Coderank. So what is Coderank? Well, Coderank is the replacement for the current developer hiring process. So what is the current developer hiring process? Well, if you're looking for a developer for any project of choice, your first thought will be to head over to LinkedIn or Upwork or maybe Fiverr or one of these other freelance websites. And when you go to these websites, what you're looking for, what you're looking for is their resumes and or their portfolios. But what you can't see is if these resumes are actually a good representation of their skills, because anybody can put anything on a piece of paper. And also what you can't tell is if these skills that they said they have or displayed on their portfolio will translate into your use case perfectly well. Also, what you cannot determine is how long they respond or how quick they adjust to different problems and how flexible they are when it comes to dealing with new issues. So they are just, you are going in blind if you're going in with the current system. You depending on what the person wrote on his resume, how good it sounds, and you're just hoping that it will translate to your project. And that is not an effective way of hiring skill developers, especially in um, area aspect of programming and coding. Eventually, what you're actually looking for is if this person can provide that result that you want effectively, efficiently, and on time. You cannot get that from a resume, and you cannot get that from an Upwork profile or a LinkedIn profile. Just can't. You just hope that all these things they say are true, and eventually, many of them end up lying on their resumes, and when the job comes, you see that they have to learn on the job. So eventually, you've kind of lost a lot of those things you hoped to get. So that is why I created this software Coderank. So with Coderank, those blind spots are essentially closed, and you go straight to what matters the most, which is the results. So instead of hoping that this developer has, 5 years experience in Python, 10 years experience in C++, I mean, truly all you care about is if this person can use these tools very well to implement the what I'm trying to do my project. That is it. And that is also what Coderank does. It just says, can you use this tool to implement this project? If you can, do it and then present it. If you can't, you have to do it and show it. And if the client sees that, okay, this is not good enough, then the client knows that, yes, you don't possess those skills. So there's no guesswork here. This is 100% get what see what you get, or you get what you see. That is Coderank essentially. And eventually, this is the best way to hire, skilled developers, because once you create that pool and say, look, this is what I want, use any tools you want or use this particular tools and show me what you have. You see that the real skilled developers will just automatically, filter themselves to the top, and you can just see that, okay, yes, this person actually does know what he says he knows. And then the people who just, pad their resumes are just going to fall to the bottom because at the end of the day, they don't have the skill. So I just want to give you a little demo on how this system works, and just walk you through it to some of the basics, and introduce you to how you can benefit from this system. So first of all, let's just navigate to the dashboard real quick. And the first thing about Coderank you need to know about is servers. So every project, every contest, every resource in Coderank lives on a server, and that is what you need to create first. So we'll head over to servers and we add a server. So as you can see, you have a few options, and the recommended server is CPX51 with 16 CPUs and 32 gigabytes of RAM. So depending on the project or contest you want to run, you might need higher, you might need lower. For example, if you're running like just a shell script, or a C++ terminal application, which won't really take a lot of resources, you may not need a very big server. However, if you're running a maybe a Next.js application, which needs web um, rendering and all of that, Node.js, packaging and module compilation, you need a much bigger server. And also you need to factor in how many people will be on that content. So if you have about 50 people with the Next.js application, you need a bigger server. If you have about 10 people with a C application, you need a smaller server. So every resource is actually just a Docker container running on this server. And then you can preview different entries from a contest, which are different Docker containers separately. And they are all separate with separate networks, and they're connected to the proxy, which proxies, requests to those containers securely. So yes, so for this demo, we won't have to go this high. We'll just take a modest CPX21 server with 3 CPUs and 4 gigabytes of RAM. This typically can take about 10 um, users concurrently, and working on a fairly light project. So let's go ahead and select that. So now that we've selected that, it's now creating the server. So you give this a minute because it has to set up all these things I said. It has to set up the essentials for it to run all these services. It has to set up the proxy, has to set up Docker, has to set up networking, has to set up some security tools like filterban, and essentially just configuring your server for this use case, and it'll take a little while, and then it's going to be ready. So let's give it a minute. Okay, so the server is ready, and you can now see some information about the server, including the monthly price, cost, type, the RAM, CPU, and disk size, and then the IP address, and then the domain of the server. So this is what it's going to handle all the requests to that server. So since our server is ready, so all we need to do now is go to projects and now create a new project, because you cannot create a project without a server. So click on that, select your server, and then you click on the project title. We'll call this module trace. So you can give more descriptions, but we'll just leave it at this. Create a project. And there we go. So now we are inside our project module trace, and the next thing we need to do is create resources. So we can create contests, but contests depend on resources. So we need to create resources first. And then we can see here the server that is attached to this project, which is this we just created. So we create a new resource. And for this, we're just going to start with a blank resource. So as I said, resources are essentially just Docker containers. And Coderank is built around Docker containers because of how portable and how easy it is to spin up, and the resources it takes compared to regular virtual machines or micro VMs. and how easy it is to export and ship. So that is why we chose Docker containers, because they are just easy to work with. So all these Docker containers are just what you have on Docker Hub or any other um, container repository, but they are all Debian based. So really, you could select a preset here, or you could just go with custom and then select your particular Docker image. So what you must know is that this here must be Debian based, because all the setup we are running on the containers are all for Debian, and just for Debian or Debian derivatives like Ubuntu. So you can create a custom preset with image name, volumes, and all of that. But for now, we just go to the blank preset, which is already just Debian empty Debian container with bookworm, Debian bookworm installed. So click on that. I'll just call this blank resource. And here you can connect this resource to a Git repository if you've added. So I've added a Git repository here, or if you want a public, you just click on public and then search for a public, repository. Like maybe, let me see if there's a next starter. I'm getting that right. Okay, so there are a bunch of starter kits here. Search for the ones you want and click. But now we're just going to leave the Git repository and go with just a blank Docker container. I'll give you a short description and long description if you want to further, add more description to the container. And now this is our configuration for this container. So the configuration really controls how the container is built and how the container should run. That is essentially it. So you see that we have this is YAML or JSON, depending on how you want to edit it, but I think most people go with YAML. So this run command here is this run attribute is how you want your container to run after everything is prepared. So this is useful for contestants that are, working on a contest that you started. So for example, here is just echo welcome home. And it means that once you start this container on a contestant's entry, you're not really going to see what the contestant, the source code for that container. You're just going to see the output, which is what Coderank is after, the output. So what is going to run the output will be just, for now, welcome home. So the contestant can change it to run a script or to do something else. But that is, the run command. And then the type, this is a type of container. There are two types currently, shell and web. So a shell container means you're just going to preview entries in a shell. And then a web container means you're going to preview it in kind of a browser. So these are the two modes of preview we have. And then this is the preset. The preset is essentially what kind of Docker container this is. And the most important attribute is the Docker image, which is this. And you could change this again. It has to be Debian based, but this is the most important attribute here. The rest are just essentially metadata, the title, slug, then images and run flags. This is also important, but you can leave that to be known. The Docker command, this Docker command is required to keep some containers alive. For example, if you just start a Node.js Docker container, it will stop immediately if you don't give it a command, because there's nothing to run. So typically for Node.js Docker containers, we'll just give it a command like this bash, so that it's going to run an integrated terminal and keep the container running while you're working on the container. So for this, really don't need any command, because it's going to run, I think, bash automatically. So now envs are these are just environment variables that are required for some containers. This doesn't need an environment variable, but containers like MariaDB or MySQL, like MySQL root password for the container to even start. If it doesn't find that environment variable, it's not even going to start. So volumes, these are required, very important. By default, you have the root volume, so this saves what you have in your root directory, except some files that are not needed. But this is needed to persist your work between sessions. So if you rebuild the container what happens is that it deletes the container and then it builds it again from scratch. But then if you have this volume there, it's not going to delete all your work. It's just going to pick up back from where you left off. So this is needed if you need to do some, upgrade to the container. You need to change something, you may even change the image altogether, and then, reboot the container. So that's one of the good things about using Docker containers. Very easy to spin up, very easy to shut down and to remove and then resume with volumes and all of that. So these are just basic configuration. So here we have this interactive configuration to make it more visual, and here you can do the same configurations that you can do on your YAML file, but they are more interactive. Now we have our two application style, web or shell. So if you change this to web, see that the preview here is going to change type web, and then if you change this to shell, it's going to also change to shell. So if you save this, it's going to apply to for example, if we change this to web and save it, see that we are now looking at type web. So if we go ahead and edit this again, let's change it back to shell, and then run command is echo welcome home. We could change this to something that is, maybe a shell script, something like change mod plus X, give it executable, give a file name run.sh those privileges, and then run that file. So it means that we should have a file called run.sh for it to run in the root directory and the working directory. So this is build command. Is if you need to run something before you start. And the run port is required for web applications. What ports do you need the application to run on? And work directory default is root workspace and available ports. So this is different from run port because this just shows how many ports you want to be exposed from in that Docker container. More like how many ports you want to be proxied, because the proxy service is proxying requests to specific ports. So you need to open the ports you need. If you need 2-3 ports, you need to put them here so that the proxy can hit those ports. So dependencies. So there are some things you may need installed in your container. For example, you may need this is Debian book one, so NeoFetch is still in their repositories. You may add that, and it's going to show here you have APT dependencies. And if you notice, you also have Coderank dependencies. So these are dependencies that are managed by Coderank. These are not a dependency you can install with simply running apt install. At least not the latest versions like Node.js. You need to install it with a different method. So these dependencies will be installed by Coderank separately using different shell scripts depending on the dependency. Currently, we just have Bourne and Node.js. We'll add more subsequently. So these are the dependencies section, and then VS Code extension. So what Coderank does is we just configure a Docker container to run VS Code and new Vim, and then you can update your references there, or update the container there, and then export the container whenever you feel like it's actually a very straightforward system. So any VS Code extension you might need, instead of installing it on the container, manually, you could just put it here to install automatically, and the container will just start with those extensions. So we don't need any right now. So if we set this configuration, you see that we have our dependencies here, and we can move ahead. Initialization script, init script, these are scripts that run when you're initializing the container. So if you need some things installed manually, or if you need to write a file, something like this, root slash workspace slash, maybe you need a .env file. You just, put it here, port 6, 3000, something like this. But you need to be careful because this script could prevent your container from starting up. So if you see an error in preparing your container, more than likely it's going to be either from this init script or from this post script. So the post script runs after everything is set up, after all the dependencies are installed, after all the, um, extensions, proxy setup. So maybe if you need a dependency before you run this post script, Shouldn't put this at the init script, put it at the post script when everything is ready. So that is that just the basic settings for your resource. Just have a preview, and then we'll just launch this resource. So you add this resource to our project model trace. So resources live inside project. So we give it some time for the resource to prepare. So what it's doing here, it's looking at the configuration, is starting up the Docker container with some specific, it's creating the volumes and then the network for starting up the Docker container for those volumes, and then networks, and then it's configuring the container inside, and then it's configuring the proxy to correctly proxy requests to the containers, and also it's configuring the authorization, because you can just access the VS Code or the editor. You need some authorization, so it's doing all these things. It's running post scripts, init scripts, and all of this. So once the container is ready, you can just start working on the container and do whatever you want to do with the container. So we'll give that a minute. And while that is loading, you see that there are some extra tabs here. So see that you can attach this container to a contest. So every contest is based on a container or on a resource in Coderank. So that's how it works. Create a server, create a project. Resources are in the project, and then containers are based off those resources. Sorry, our contests are based off those resources, which are Docker containers. So this resource doesn't have a version yet. To create a version as a resource starts, so you need to keep track of your versions of this resource. So this is the server. We already know about this. Export. You can export this resource. So let's say you edit this container. You do all this configuration, install all these dependencies for a specific use. If you want to move this container to deploy it, just export it and then use it in any Docker orchestration platform of choice, like Kubernetes. So what you're exporting is a Docker image, and you can deploy it anyhow you want. Again, this is why Docker is just easy to work with. So the results have been prepared, and if you notice here, we now have a new button here named Code, so you can now view the code and edit the container essentially. But you see, there's this other remote gate, means you can add, you can link this resource to a remote Git repository. So if you don't want to work on this resource with the code editor provided, you could just sync it to maybe your GitHub account, create a GitHub repository, and then work on it on your machine that you like, and then sync it back, and then pull it down here, and then yeah, you're ready to go. So there are a lot of options for you to work with, and it's easy to just connect a Git repo. So you need to add a GitHub account, and then to create a new repo for you. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to view the code and see what it looks like. So it's loading the code server, which is already been prepared when we were preparing the resource. And then the code server is essentially just VS Code. And you see we have two options here, VS Code and NeoVim. And this is the code server, VS Code. So very familiar to a lot of people that use VS Code. So you can import your VS Code settings here by doing some little configurations, and still being in the pipeline, but there's a lot of things you can do to make this similar to what you currently have. So for now, this is the default. And you can see that this is just a basic VS Code file. You could, add any, add a run.sh file we put in our configuration. And if you notice, there are some files that are here by default. So if your setup doesn't have a README, you're just going to put this there as a default README. And then the CDR ignore file. This file, as the name suggests, ignores some patterns that you don't want to be visible to a contestant when you start a contest. So by the way, let me move this over here for you to see this other side. So if you see on your bottom left, there are some things that you need to take note of. So the CDR ignore file, when you start a contest, what you actually do is the contest is attached to a Docker container. or a resource like this blank resource. And when a contestant makes an entry, contestant essentially inherits the configurations of the Docker container into a new Docker container and a new, you know, network, a new volume, and everything. So it copies the new container copies all the information in the workspace directly, specifically to the workspace of the new entry. So the CDR ignore file says that look, if you have .env here, maybe you need an env file to set up this container, but you don't want it to be accessed by the contestant. You put it in this file, and then everything in this directory copies except the patterns. Like here, the .env file is not going to copy over. So if you add a new file here and the contestant updates his own container, you're just going to send these files over to the contestant's entry, but to still respect this env um, exclusion. So that is how it works essentially. Also, one thing I want to also add is that you can add your CLI tools, your AI CLI tools, to these workspace or to these resource. And the way you do it is you go to settings, and I'll show you that later, and then configure some things, and then your CLI tools will be available in every of your resource. So for example, I enabled open code, and if I go here and type open code, you see that I can now access open code here. So these are the things that are being set up that takes a little time for the resource. So it installs, if you have all these things in your settings, you're just going to install them in all these containers. So open code here is installed. And let's choose one of those free models. Let's go with Kimi K2.5. And then let's just put something that run.sh, so write a shell script of your choice into run.sh. So choose a shell script, which is usually a system dashboard script, and it's going to write it into run.sh. Just put something there for demo purposes. Give it some time to do that. So by the way, these are run.sh. You can see that inside to write. So if you have cloud code configurations ready, you just put your cloud code, select cloud code, and put your required environment variables, and it's just going to show up on every resource that you run. So that is one of the features of Coderank. So yes, it has built, yes, of course, a system health check. And let's open a new terminal and see if it already gave it executable command. So the change mod plus X is actually redundant, but we'll still keep it there just in case. So remember, if you go to the Coderank YAML file, you can't edit this file, but this shows you the configurations you're currently running with. So you see that this is a start command as we set before, and in case this file doesn't have executable, it's just going to give it the executable. If it does, it will just keep that and then run the file. So let's run this and see what it gives us. There we go. System health check basic, daytime, load average, memory usage. So this is a free not found. So this is a Docker container. Many things are not installed, so it's looking for those things. It doesn't know it's in a Docker container. So this is CPU. So the CPU is showing because Docker uses the kernel of the host machine. So you see some of those important host metrics like CPU and RAM, I think. So this usage is also showing, and then just a few things here. So the shell script works to an extent, and we'll leave it at that. So yeah, this is just a test of the blank resource. So your options are really limitless. Just once you understand that these are just Docker containers, you can really do a lot of things. That there are many, probably thousands or I don't know, millions of Docker containers out there. You can choose any you want to work on, start with it, and you know, develop it. Take it like this, with the Docker file, you run, from Debian Bookworm, and then you start running all the scripts. What you're really doing is that you're kind of running it and building the image, hoping that there won't be any errors and all of that. But with this method, starting from this kind of the same Debian base image, and then you're just editing everything directly here. So you can do way more like this than using a Docker file. So once you're done, you export this and your image is ready. I mean, it's way better. So yeah. So yes, let's get back to the code editor. We have VS Code, and then we also have NeoVim. So let's just switch to NeoVim to see what that looks like. So these are the two code options that are available. Again, if you have your own IDE set up, you can just sync the to the Git repository, and then pull it there, and then work on it, and then push and then pull back from here. Very simple. So here we have NeoVim. Let me reload that. All right, so new vim here, and then we can open any file here. Have .run.sh, and this is what the open code gave us. Can edit it here, but I'm not much of a fan of new vim. I'm still learning it, so you can do all the edits you want. And you can write, and then if you don't know how to quit, you don't have to learn how to quit new vim. Just click on VS Code, and it's gonna take you out of there. So those are the two options we have for the code editor. So let's create one more resource, because now we've seen how to create a shell resource. We need to know how to create a web resource, because a web resource needs a port running, and you need to preview it on a web browser. So let's go to resources. So for module trace, we already have one resource. Now we're going to add another resource, and this resource will be we have all these options. To have expo, we have Node.js with Bond, Node.js with Next.js with Bond, Next.js with Node.js. We have Vite with Bond, Vite with Node.js. So we'll just go with Next.js with Bond, I think, to just creating a simple startup. So call this Next.js Bond resource, and yeah. So let's go to the interactive terminal. So here is a web application, and we're on this. To start this by running Bond start, but we need to build first. So there should be a script there for building, and then start command is also should be in the package.json file. So this needs to run on port 3000. Any other port you want, you need to expose the port here. So you can see 3000 is already exposed, and we don't need any dependencies now. I think we installed one before. We didn't check that, but we'll check and see the dependencies here. Let's I don't know if NeoFetch is available on Trixie, because I know NeoFetch is available on Bookworm, but not on Trixie, I believe. So let's just see something that's available on Trixie too. So HTOP, I think she's available on Trixie. Trixie, that's a Debian version. The latest version is Debian Trixie, and then the previous version was Debian Bookworm. So we'll add HTOP there, and one is already installed, so just keep this at that, just to test and see if HTOP is working. I hope I remember. So set this configuration. And this is the init script. As you can see, it's you can if you understand bash scripting, this is very simple to understand. Just cd into the workspace directory, and then check if there's a next config.cs file, because if you're trying to rerun or rebuild this container, you are persisting some data. So if it's already installed, there's no need to reinstall it. So this is only if it's a fresh install. So to check if this next config is there, and then it will run the create next app latest, and then to remove the git from the next app folder, so that because we don't need two git repos, and then to copy everything from the next app into the workspace directory, and then to remove everything from the next app directory. It's pretty straightforward shell script. and then it's also going to add this env, port 3000. Then that's it really. So there are a lot of things. If you really know how to do shell scripting, you can do a lot of things there, but again, a lot of things can break, so you have to be careful there. So we'll just add this resource, and then like the previous resource, will give you some time to prepare. So what you should understand is that the resource could easily not prepare correctly, and it's going to typically be because of the what you have in your init script. So it would be easier to be on the safe side to just delete everything in the init script and then manually start the container with a base like maybe born, and then install all the things you need to install, and then you know that everything will be persisted in the next build. So that's one thing you should know. So you should be very careful with the init script section. So again, Coderank is for advanced developers, and what the aim is to really separate the real skilled developers from the non-skilled developers, and that is really what Coderank aims to achieve. So let's give that a minute. And there we have it. Our resource is ready and our code button is ready. So we'll click on that and see. And our code server is up and running, I think. Yes. So yeah, these are all new code servers. So you have to just go do the initial, setup. And here we have our page.txx. This is the next blank starter kit, and let's check our package.json. Okay. Yes, everything is okay. And you see we don't have a git ignore file here, so the first commit likely added those node modules. So what you need to do is you need to add a git ignore in the init script. So this is one of the benefits of the init script. So yeah, so let's just test and see how this is application is working. So we'll run, I believe born dev. I believe born install has been run already. Okay. And I think yes, our application is now running on ports 3000. So that's why you need to proxy this port. So go ahead and open this port here. And it says it's going to compile. And there we have it. So this is all live, with hot model replacement. So we could change this to, welcome to Coderank. And it's just going to, so you could delete image here and it will apply, and everything is live and responsive and all that. So this is just simple demo of this. We'll quit this and go back. I think we should add a git ignore here. Ignore the the usual suspects. So yeah, so if you notice as you edit these files, see that the save container button just becomes available. So this is important, especially for contest entries, to keep to version their your entries. So if you version your entry, so by the way, this server stopped, so nothing there again for the proxy. So if you version entry, it makes it easier to really see what has been going on so far. So a contest owner can view your versions, see what you did before, what you changed. Maybe you should go back to this version. Versions are, just a way to keep track of the history of your project. But what you should know, that versions are just, Git branches. So if I say Git branch here, see, we just have the main branch, which is the first commit. But then if I save this container states, I'm going to go ahead and create a new version. And you can see now we now have version number 1. So you have version 1, version 2, version 3, and so forth and so forth. And you can compare and contrast versions. So that is an important aspect. And again, can connect your Git repository, here, so that you can link it over to a remote Git, do some things, and then pull it back here. So that is how that works. So you notice these are just some side options. There's some things you can do. For example, you can open this in full screen in a new tab. You can refresh to reload the VS Code. Maybe some issue happen with the code editor. Just reload it, and you can switch the code editor to VS Code on NeoVim as we did before. And yeah, so that's just that. So currently now we have 2 resources, Next.js resource and then blank resource. Now from these resources, we will create a contest. But before that, I want to show you some of the settings that you can do at the back end, before you create resources. So if you go to user settings and you go to preferences, you're going to see that, in fact, I have OpenCode and Copilot CLI installed. So in those containers, OpenCode was installed, Copilot was also installed. So if you deselect Copilot, it means only OpenCode means installed. If you select Cloud Code and OpenCode will installed. So let me just keep OpenCode for now. You can change your default editor. So if I switch this to Vim, by the way, let me update this. So now my default code editor is Vim, new Vim, and I just have only OpenCode installed. So environment variables, you might need these environment variables for things like Copilot or Cloud Code or even OpenCode to add maybe GPT models and other AI models. So this is you need to keep this secret, very important and sensitive file. So I won't open this for now. And yeah, these are the preferences. And these are the Git accounts. You can connect your Git accounts here, and you could delete your account, which you probably shouldn't do. So let's just go back and see if our new Vim is working in that resource. So select resources and let's select Next.js resource, and let's select the previous resource. It really doesn't matter. So I know I installed new fetch on this resource. I want to see if that's working. And I installed htop on the other resource. So you see that it has just gone straight to NeoVim. And I think this has the run sh. Okay. So I'm just going to switch back to VS Code here. Okay, so remember we installed we added new fetch as a dependency. So new fetch should be here. And there we go. OpenCode is also here. There we go. That is OpenCode. And then Copilot, yeah, we added Copilot. Copilot was active when we did this. So Copilot should also be available. There we go, Copilot. And yes, I trust these files. Would you like this key bindings? Yes. So yeah, you see you can use Copilot or whatever you choose to install on your whatever you choose to set up. So let me just get back to those settings and move this back to VS Code. There we go. Then go back to projects, the model trace. So now we've created resources. We want to create contests. So I want to create 2 contests to show how you can preview, contest entries that have the 2 different forms. So a shell contest entry, you preview it in a terminal, and a web contest entry, you preview it in a web. So I'm going to create those two contests to show you how you preview those two types. So go ahead and create a contest. So we choose a project, then we choose a resource. We start with a blank resource. Select an organization, that's optional, and we just call it blank resource or the blank contest. You can add a description. Price is required. That's $50 as a minimum, and then you create a contest. So now this contest by default is not published. You have to click on publish for the contest to be active. So go ahead and click on publish, and the contest now is visible to contestants. So entries will be shown here, and any contest message you can put it here. Now we'll just put here, do your best. So all the contestants can view these messages. So we'll go back to entries, and yeah, so we have one contest. So if we go back to contests, you have one active contest. Then we'll have to go and create a new contest. Again, this is project we choose, and this time we'll go with Next.js resource. We'll just call this Next.js contest. So this could be create a landing page for my website or for my company, or create an admin panel for my company. That is it, and then you just see different landing pages and different admin panels which you can click and scroll through and test online. So that's the good thing about Coderank. We'll keep this contest at $50 too. Create contest, and there we now publish this contest as well. And there we go. We now have two active contests. But to see, we don't have any entry yet, and then this is where developers come in. So let me just log out and log in as a developer. Okay. All right. So we're now logged in as the developer, and immediately we see those two contests we just created, blank contest and the Next.js contest. So we go ahead and make an entry. So an entry is essentially a duplicate of the contest resource, a new duplicate. So what you have is you're starting off from what the contest owner has already configured, then you're carrying on from there. So that's what the contest entry is. So we'll go ahead and make an entry. And once you click on that, you see that you cannot view your entry. But however, your entry is not prepared yet, so you have to give it some time to prepare. So what's happening is that it's taking the owner's Docker base, container, taking the configuration, getting the files, and then moving it over to a brand new container with a new volume, a new network, just new configurations generally. So that is what it's doing now. It's just ported over the Docker container. Also, it's creating a preview container, which is kind of another duplicate of the duplicate that was made. So that preview container will be what the contest owner will use to view your work. So for every entry, there are two Docker containers. So for the most part, the preview container is just off until when the contest owner wants to see what you've done. Then the preview container will come up. So, and the preview container will just sync everything you have in your company. It's not going to be always like a mirror, but it's not going to be exactly the same. So it's preparing those two containers. So give it some time. So one thing you need to know is that to submit your entry, you see what it says, at least one version is required to submit entry. So when you prepare the entry and then the code button is ready, you work on the entry and then see the entry is currently ready to go. So you work on the entry and then you make some updates and then you submit the entry and then the contest owner can now view the entry. That's it is now the contest owner still can't view the entry because you've not submitted the entry, and that's because you don't have any version yet, just the first comment, which is not a version. And so that's that. So let's go over to the code, see what we have in there. Okay, so you see that we've inherited everything from the contest owner except the git and anything in the CDR ignore file. So you have your own CDR ignore file, and it says here add patterns you don't want to be visible. So yeah, so this is imported from the contest owner's env file. So for your own purpose, any file here will be patterns you don't want to be visible to the contest owner. So the patterns here will be visible to the contest owner. So anything you ignore here, when if you click on enable preview, which means the contest owner can view your source code, anything you put here, the contest owner will be able to see in that preview. So that's why you have a CDR ignore file works a bit different for the two user types. So for the employer, you are like preventing some files from being moved over to the contestant container. Then for the contestant, you are preventing some files from being viewed by the contest owner. So that's how it works. So let's go ahead and get that, and then you see that our run this sh system health check. We imported that, and want to now do some work. So let's see open code. Open code is also installed on this account. So let's just give it a base, create shell scripts of choose. So let's see what it creates. Of course, it's likely going to be another system dashboard thing. So remember this time we didn't give you run.sh, so I'm going to write into the run.sh. So see what happened. It just wrote into sysinfo.sh. So if we list this directory, we're going to see there sysinfo.sh, and if we go ahead and run that, there we have yeah, it's pretty similar to what we had here, just a little differences. So that's what we have now. But if you remember, if you go to the config.yaml, what we are running here is run.sh, not sys.info. So we have to update that run script so that when the contestant wants to preview it, the contest owner wants to preview it, he's not going to preview what he gave you before. He's going to preview the new shell script. So the config.yaml file, you just have to change this run.sh to sys.sh. But editing this file doesn't change anything. This is just the file to show you what your container is currently running. You have to quit this editor, go back to the contest entry page, and then this is where your configuration lies. And this is where you can edit it and it will reflect. You go ahead and change that to sysinfo.sh, and everything here is working well. And they go ahead and update the configuration. So now when contest owner wants to preview, you can preview what you created. Sysinfo.sh. Also remember you can always edit this here, interactively. So you don't need to edit it on the YAML file. So there we have it. So let's go back to because we can't submit entry, we've not created the version. Let's go back to our code page. Now we can see that a save container button should be available. And now we have to create a new version by saving the container state. And then now we'll be able to see we now have version 1. So now we can actually submit the entry. So let's just wait for this to complete. So yes, now inactive, we'll go back to the entry. And now we'll now click on submit entry. And there you have it. Our entry is now visible to the contest owner. The contest owner can now preview it and give feedback. So if you click on enable code review, the contest owner will be able to both see the preview and also see the source code. So that's very important if you want the contest owner to see what you did, enable code preview. So let's go to the second contest, which is a Next.js contest. We'll also make an entry as well, like so. And then we'll wait for our entry to be prepared. Give it a minute. Again, resources, entry is also a resource and can be exported. So if you feel you need to use your entry something else, you can just export it, and then maybe if the contest owner is going to close the server or things like that, you'll be able to access that entry once the server is closed. So you could export your entry, to a Docker image and then run it somewhere else. So the options are just limitless when you're dealing with Docker. You just have a lot of flexibility. Okay, so our entry is now ready, and now we can now view the code. Okay, so as you can see, we have inherited everything that was in the contest results. So you can see welcome to Coderank. We want to change that. Then we can run, on dev. And our preview is now available. We can preview that. There we have welcome to Coderank. We just changed this so that to be different. The contest owner can see we've done something. Welcome to back. Then save that. It's going to update. Then the save container state should come on anytime now. Yep. Now we can now add our own version. So this is what is going to be available. Let's just quit that real quick. Save container states. And here we now have version 1. Can now go back to the entry. And now we can submit the entry. And our contest owner can see this entry. So for this entry, I want to enable code review. So if I click on that, it means that the contest owner can view the source code as well as the web preview. So also it's important we make sure these are active bomb build and bomb start. So let's go to the code and confirm that those shells, those scripts are available. So if we open our package.json file, so here we see we have build, which is next build. Now we have start, which is next start. So everything is working as expected. So there we go. So there we have it. We've made 2 entries. One has code review, and the other does not have code review. So let's once again view our entries. So yes, these are our two entries, and we've not received any rating yet. So we'll log back into the contest owner employer dashboard, and then we'll preview these entries and give them a rating and select winner. So let's log out now. Okay, so there we have it. So let's see our active contests. We're back in the employer dashboard. We see we have two contests. We have the Next.js contest, and now we have the entry number 1 from ArcBen. Let's go ahead and preview that. So we could select winner if we want, but I want to see what contestant did. So go ahead and select the preview. So what's happening now? It's running the build, and then it's running the start script. So once it's ready, it's going to show the web preview. So you can see that this version is not working very well. And that's one of the things about Coderank. If the version doesn't work, you're going to see, yeah, like, yeah, your resume is very, padded, but what you created didn't work. And if you come back here, you can actually kind of see why it doesn't work. So this build command here, burn build, supposed to be burn run build, and then you could run burn start afterwards. But burn kind of um, treats build as a different, because there's a there's a command burn called build. You want to build a package or something. By the way, I cannot update the contest entry configuration, so the contestant will have to edit that. So I can just come here and say, give a message, you know, this doesn't work, and then send a message to the contestant. Now we're going to go ahead and log back in as a contestant and fix this. So if you notice, we didn't run the bond build when we were testing it to know if it will actually build. So check it out and see what's wrong there. We're back in as the contestant, and we can see we have a message here from the um, contest owner that the entry doesn't work. So we can go here to the entry, and then we can go check the code again. So if you look, if we come here and we run build, so you see what is causing the error. Run build is an internal command, so it needs some more arguments. But if we come and run build, then this is actually what we are looking for. So there's quite a few errors here. We'll ignore that for now. And then it's going to build the application. So if you come and now we run burn start, now it's available and we could check it out. So there we go. Welcome to ArcBen. It's now working. So you should be very careful with the commands you put out there, because it will easily break your application and you may not know what is happening. And that is the good thing about Coderank. If your application doesn't work, it breaks, and you see it. And then you can say, okay, yes, this doesn't work, or this works. So let's go back to the remember, we cannot edit the configuration here. We have to edit it from here. And so instead of the burn build, we have to change this to burn run build, and then we update that configuration, and then we'll log out. So right now, let's log back in as the contest owner. Okay, so we're back in the Next.js contest with the updated entry. So let's look at it again. We'll go back to preview. Wait for the preview to load. And there you go. It works now. Welcome to ArcBen. Okay, so if you remember, for this particular entry, we enable the code review from the contestant's side. And that means that the contest owner can review your source code. So there's this button that appears here once you enable code review. So it won't be there if you don't enable the code review. And with that button, you can see switch to code. And whatever is happening here, the contest owner can see what is powering it behind the scenes. So if I click on switch to code, it's going to show you what is, powering the application. That is the source code. So as you can see here, we have the source code. Welcome to ArcBen. And the contest owner can see how you did your work and can see the source code, see how your coding practices and all of that. And then really determine, see how you actually solve these problems. And content owner could also make some little changes to see how it's, for example, updated to just see how, a little fix could, change the workflow. And then it could get back to you and say, hey, man, fix this, it works this way, and things like that. So if I change it now to updated and then switch back here, switch back to preview, it's going to preview with the updated version. So this is just happening in a sandbox just in this session. If I reload the page, it's going to go back to how it was before. As it is now, it's running the rebuild again and it's running this start command again, and you can see it has been updated and everything is, working as it should. So if I press F5 to reload the page, you see that it's going to go back to what it had before, which was actually what the contestant provided. So you cannot actually edit what the contestant put. You could preview it, you could export it if he wins the contest and then take it to another platform and edit it. But you really just get what the contestant provided here. So that's that. You can select the contestant as, the winner. So you select as the winner, click OK, and there you go. You now have the contest as, a winner. Now that the contest is being awarded a winner, you can now export this contest entry to a Docker container since the contest is now yours. So you can export entry here, or you can export entry, export the container here. We'll just go and export the entry here. And it takes a bit of time to export the entry because, it has to commit the container. Sometimes it could be large, and then it has to compress it using XZ compression, which takes quite a while. Then it has to upload it to the S3 platform. So you have to wait for all of that to happen. Okay, so our export is done for this winning entry. And then if we go to our exports, you're going to see here that is the winning entry. Is about 195.57 megabytes. Then you can download it here and deploy wherever you want to deploy. So that's essentially full circle. All right, so let's go to the blank contest now. And here we see that entry from ArcBen. So let's preview this entry, see what's in there. So this is of contest entry shell, and a shell preview is different from a web preview. So a web preview will preview on the web, but a shell preview will preview on just the shell. And there we have it. This is our preview, and That is that system information shell script running here. And if you want to rerun it, just press enter again. It's going to reconnect and rerun. Or you press rerun here. You're going to just reload the entire thing and then rerun. So any shell preview appear here. You can, if it has an interactive terminal, you can interact with it and run it with commands or anything. So this is the shell preview, and the shell looks okay. I mean, at least, can I give it a rating? 3 stars. Or I could give it 5 stars. Why not? And now see that we cannot preview the source code of this, but we can only give it entry. We can select this as a contest winner if we want. And there we go. The contest is over. And this is the winner of the contest. Yeah, so our 2 contests have been completed. And let us, that is essentially what Coderank is about. And you can see the contestants skills live. Can hire for any development you want, any kind of task you want. As you can see, whether it's something that is going to run on a shell or something that's going to run on the web. So subsequently, we'll look to add more platforms, but that's it for now. Coderank. And this test contestant has made $97 or so, or made so yes, that's it. Thank you very much.